Hey guys, I'm Steve from DoraHacks and Dora Factory team. Happy to really happy to host this workshop together with our um, team members and also our community partners. So today we're going to talk about MACI. We just launched a MACI use case hackathon on the Dora platform to actually, I think, call upon all of the community to think about what are some of the use cases for MACI. Um, and we're definitely explaining what is MACI and why this matters to you shortly after in this workshop. But before that, let me briefly introduce all of our guests. So today I'm actually joined by Claire, operational captain from our ops team. Um, yeah. And
Hello.
we also have guests joining us from all over the world, including East Bucharest, Comments of Web3, um, University of Calgary Blockchain Society. We have Amir joining us, and also Non-Geek team. I want to thank you all for taking your precious time to join us in this discussion on the use case of MACI in this workshop. Um, So the workshop will probably start with us briefly explaining what is MACI at all, and how are we using them in some of the scenarios. And we'll also, I think, save a lot of time for discussions, which like everyone is actually encouraged to participate about what are some of the use cases, or if there's any question, happy to answer them. So yeah, let me move on. So um, I think let me really get into MACI first. So, what is MACI? MACI in general is privacy voting. Um, so why we're talking about privacy voting at all? So it's like two words, privacy and voting. Um, we want to start with voting itself. So voting is not as common as, some of the other actions that we have day to day, like eating or running. So voting doesn't really happen every day, but voting is still very, very important to us. Um, as as people, we vote for certain stuffs. We vote for who is our next president. We vote for who is our next president of the student union, universities. We vote for leaders in a corporate. We vote for like certain proposals in a decentralized community, like a DAO. The DAO can be as big as um, deciding $1 billion treasury or deciding how a blockchain is going to evolve. Are we increasing our inflation rate? Are we decreasing our inflation rate as a blockchain? That can really change this ecosystem. So voting really happens every day. Um, and why blockchain can really improve voting in general is that there are certain problems in those votings traditionally with the traditional methods. So in traditional voting, there's um, you know, there's problems with transparency. So when you actually don't vote on chain, you can't really make sure that all of the votes are genuine or like real votes. For instance, someone would fabricate the votes, duplicate the votes, change the votes. You can't really know. So also like there's problems like collusion. Um, for instance, like the votees can bribe the voters, especially like if there's a huge financial incentive after that, or the votee is like a really good friend of the voter. Um, so this kind of collusion happens all the time. So a really important narrative is that blockchain can improve voting in general. So this is actually one of the real use cases of blockchain and crypto in general. Because like blockchain, when people talk about how blockchain can really change people's lives as a frontier technology, a lot of people think about the financial side of things. So blockchain is on-chain transaction. So we're actually creating a decentralized finance ecosystem infrastructure to actually change what's going on with the traditional financial world. But also blockchain have this um, really, really cool features that can actually build trust and solidify um, like really, really important results as an application as well. So we're actually using a really important feature of blockchain to solve a very specific problem here. So MACI is actually a more advanced version of on-chain voting proposed by Vitalik Buterin in 2019 as one of the core use cases for blockchain in general. MACI was proposed as minimum anti-collusion infrastructure to actually solve some of the collusion problem that's already seen in on-chain voting. For instance, a project raising public goods funding from the community can promise airdrops to bribe the voters. A lot of projects actually did that in the past. So how can we create a system to prevent that from happening? How can I vote for a project on chain without revealing my identity and prevent the votees to actually bribe the voters with airdrops and all the other perks and opportunities? So this is what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about MACI, how it's like we're actually less talking about how we're realizing MACI with Z technology. That's like a more technical topic that could take like a totally like another 2 to 3 hours to go in depth. Today we're more focusing about if MACI is happening, we have this amazing technology. How can we use it? First, how can we actually use it? And second, what are some of the real life use cases? So I'm going to give like a really quick rundown of MACI in general. And Claire is going to share a little bit about a real use cases happen in the Dora community that we leveraged MACI to improve community decision making. And um, and then we can discuss basically how can we use MACI in some of the real life use cases. Like I mentioned, why MACI is important. Um, there's all kinds of reasons to actually alter the results, like with bribery and collusion. So a lot of the time, we really want to prevent that from happening. A voting system with bribery, voting system with collusion is tremendously different from one without. So right now, what we have on all of the blockchain is that all of the voting is on-chain, all of the voting is public. There's absolutely no way to protect privacy of the voters at all. So this is why I always say like we're actually so early in blockchain technology that there's actually so much to build. And this is actually why MACI matters. Like if you really understand MACI, you actually be shocked to know that how nascent we are in blockchain application development. Um, so like I mentioned, when all of the on-chain voting is transparent, there's certainly definitely a lot of benefits. So there's actually no one that can actually hide on a lot of those voting decision making. So I'm putting an example here on Cosmos Hub, how the community make decision collectively is by delegating their Atom token, a Cosmos Hub native token, to a specific validator of the network. And then the validator is gonna vote on behalf of all of the delegators on specific governance proposals. So it's very transparent right now that you can see each validator voted yes, no, no with veto or abstain on a certain topic. So everything is transparent, which is good. And validators actually not just incentivized, but also encouraged um, to actually like express their opinions on a governance proposal. But some of the bribery already happened. For instance, there's some of the whales in the Cosmos community that want certain proposals to pass. And how they're bribing the community is if the community validator voted in favor of his proposal, he will actually add delegation to the validators. So this is definitely kind of bribery and collusion that happened. Um, yeah, so just like making example here of how how is it right now, and what are some of the problems out there. So MACI is going to voting on-chain private. So this is actually a great technology that first provides privacy for the voters, and second, can still make sure that all of the voting results are correct because we're actually using MACI, using ZK to tally the votes afterwards. Um, so I'm not saying that MACI can prevent collusion, but with this technology, a lot of the previously easy collusion methods can be mitigated. Like I mentioned, we're not going to dive into the technical details in this workshop, but there's actually, if you're interested in this technology or even interested in further developing this technology, our team is always there to chat with you probably after this workshop. So privacy voting can be used for a lot of the scenarios. Our team has like came up with some ideas ourselves. The largest or the most influential ones from my perspective is that we could really use MACI in government elections. It can be as small as a very small jurisdiction to as large as United States election. From my point of view, if we're using blockchain technology in government elections in the future, we have to use MACI. Imagine you voted for a president elect, a president candidate without like you have to reveal your identity. Like that doesn't really work. But it's also like very useful for some of the day-to-day DAO operations. So for instance, you started a DAO with a really good friend and he made a very stupid proposal. You have to vote no, but you don't want to hurt his feelings. So you definitely want some privacy, you know? So you want to vote no because you think it's the right thing. You want privacy because you don't want to hurt his feelings. Um, like community funding management, protocol upgrades. So a lot of the times we actually participate in those kind of voting, um, when some of the subordinates are voting for their leaders in a corporate, they definitely want privacy. So MACI could be really, really useful in a lot of the use cases. But happy to like pick your brain on like what are some of the use cases that you can think of in your day-to-day scenarios as well. And also like I'd love to share a little bit of like MACI experiments on the Dora side. So we actually have been developing and implementing MACI in a lot of the use cases. So we actually have been implementing it in some of the hackathons that we co-hosted with OpenSea, with ZeroX, with East Denver. So you might be interested in how we're actually using MACI there. So basically, we're engaging the judges to vote for all of the hackathon participants with MACI. So the judges will vote for the projects privately using MACI, and all of the projects will actually be ranked based on the voting results without having to see which judge voted how many votes for which project. Um, so it is like a very small experiment compared with, national elections, like millions of people participating. But it's actually a really interesting experiment as a lot of those, I would say, um, really, really like good like unicorns or like community organizers that's actually very open-minded and they tried MACI, they loved it. Compare with some of the other more traditional judging process and on-chain governance like community management process. We're really trying to push adoption for MACI since then. But we have been starting to doing this since I would say 2021, 2022. So like I mentioned, Southern Plus developers used MACI in those hackathons, and more than 20,000 community members participated in MACI on-chain voting. And more than $1 million of funding has been distributed to those public goods in multi-chain using MACI. So we're actually pretty proud of this, as we're actually one of the first team that achieved this. So like I mentioned, we have used MACI in Dora Grandal voting rounds, which is on-chain community funding initiative to fund early stage public goods and startups. And we used MACI there. So we engaged the community to cast votes for candidates in our own community funding rounds. We have used it in 0x Hackathon. So not only is a quadratic voting round for the 0x Hackathon, it's also MACI. Um, so like 0x and OpenSea are a few really, really cool teams that tried this cutting edge technology. And we're most proud with East Denver 2022, where Dora team was the co-host, and we engaged the whole East Denver community to try MACI. We actually built this on Polygon back in 2022, and the whole East Denver community participated in their winner selection from 30 eligible finalists to 5 teams. They eventually won East Denver 22 that year. Um, they were selected with MACI. Yeah, so I guess I'll stop here.